independent venues are the backbone of music in the UK.
Independent Venue Week is incredibly important.
I think it's so important to support local venues, especially in this difficult financial times. I think it's important to support local as much as you can, small bands, small businesses, and yeah, make sure to go into your local venues and check out all of these incredible artists that are going to be coming to your city.
We've had so much fun on tour last week, playing independent venues up and down the country for independent venues.
Without independent venues, we'd not be where we are today. They're really important to support our music scene.
It's a absolute mainstay of the industry, and everyone should support it.
Could you describe an independent venue for a complete music newbie?
So independent venues, they are right there at the heart of your local community. They are generally smaller venues. You know, I think of them as being around like about 200 to 300 capacity. They're run by people who are passionate about music. People don't really go into them to make the big bucks, but they go into them to create these wonderful musical events. They provide this kind of hub for people interested in music and the arts. And they just, you know, such a good location for a great evening of music. And yeah.
So Independent Venue Week is an annual celebration of independent music and arts venues all around the UK, and a celebration of the people that own, run and work in them.
How important independent venues were in your solo stuff, but also kind of with Radiohead and at the very beginning.
Yeah, well, when we were first signed, it was back in 1991. I think we played a handful of shows, and I think only one outside of Oxford as well. So over our existence as a band, we played about 6 or 7 shows, and then suddenly you're there as a signed band. There's an expectation of what you do, quite rightly, and you just have to be able to get out there and play regularly, play in front of people regularly, and the kind of, I think the independent venues, they provide that kind of very supportive, and it's can be a very nurturing environment as a band.
So obviously independent venues mean a lot. If you could kind of describe what they mean to you in maybe like 1 or 2 words, what would they be?
1 or 2 words. Whoa. Musical lifeblood. That's 2 words. Well, it depends if you count lifeblood as 1 or 2 words.
Yeah, we could hyphenate it.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through the history of Night and Day?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best place to start is to say that the place has been around for 31 years. It's been here since Northern Quarter was not Northern Quarter and was a really rough area of town, and it was one of the kind of first places, along with Dry Bar, that's unfortunately no longer around, and Affleck's Palace, to kind of give a cultural hub to the city and be creative and give a chance for the area around it to flourish.
So if you could kind of describe in a few words the impact that Night and Day has had on the community and on Manchester, how would you best say?
I think, first of all, everyone's immediate inclination is to say all of the massive artists that have come and played here and rehearsed here. I mean, just in the past 5-10 years, Pale Waves used to record and write down in the basement. Phoebe Green used to practice downstairs. Niall Maher. Night and Day's always been a place that has given bands a chance. It was the first place that My Chemical Romance ever played in the UK on their first ever tour over here. It's been a place that inspires creativity, gives people a chance to try something new.
And is there anything like specific about venues being at risk this year in comparison to past years, kind of COVID resistance?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough time for independent venues. It's a tough time for artists and anyone putting on music post-COVID. But for all the potential struggles and the challenges for the venues, this is a perfect time for us to celebrate. We deliberately do the week in January because it's normally a very quiet year for venues and artists and gigs. So it really is a chance to get out and support your venues.
And with Independent Venue Week, it's coming at quite a good point, I would say, for you guys to really celebrate venues, because you're still going through the battles with Save Night and Day. Can you talk about how that started, how it's going, what's the latest?
So in terms of the Save Night and Day campaign, the very best way you can keep up to date with it is by signing the petition that's linked in all of our social media and bios. Not only does that help support the venue, but it also means you get updated when anything changes. The latest update essentially is that the court date has been postponed until June, and when we have a further date for the court date, we will of course let everyone know.
What does this mean for the wider music community?
Well, I think one of the important things is that a lot of the larger industry on a whole are looking to support us. It's not just because we all work together and we work on the same tours and Night and Day is iconic, but also partly because it represents what could be a first line in a very long line of dominoes.
And so you're obviously an ambassador this year for Independent Music Week. How did that kind of come about?
So 4 years ago, in the equivalent Independent Venue Week, I went out with a documentary crew throughout the whole of the Independent Venue Week, revisiting venues that I played in Radiohead or played in with my solo material as well. And that was more the case of going back out and trying to really get behind the scenes at venues, see what kind of the communities that are built up around them, talk to the people who own them, and really start to get a feeling of what makes the venues tick. And I mean, I've always loved the venues, but actually making that documentary, I was kind of in awe of what venue owners do, and just to be able to kind of tap into that musical community again.
And why is it important?
It's so important because, as I say, independent venues are the cultural hubs of our local community, and they really are the lifeblood for not only their communities but for emerging artists, for young people that want to learn about independent venues and work in the industry themselves. And of course, it's a chance for people to come together and enjoy live music.
And you've got loads of support from like massive bands as well, which is obviously something great. But also, I think it's just good to appreciate the fact that going to a gig in a smaller independent venue like Night and Day is a lot more intimate and actually like nicer to go to than a big arena.
I think there's a large argument, and especially during Independent Venue Week, for going to see gigs at small venues. I think it always will be the best place to see brand new bands and brand new talent. It's always the most affordable way to see brilliant bands and brand new talent, and maybe in forms or in, exciting new ways that might not make it to Academy or might not have made it to Academy venues just yet, but are still incredibly exciting and different. Every time someone does something new, it goes through these walls before it goes anywhere else. And that's happening every week. Every week we have local artists on from Manchester, we have local touring acts, we have people coming from around the country or international acts coming over for the first time. And I think that there is a perception of it's cool to see something first, but it doesn't have to be cool, because sometimes it's just the music is so excellent, it's worth seeing even if it's not at the arena.
So you don't have to be quirky to come to independent venues?
Absolutely not. No, Night and Day hosts so many different acts and so many different artists, but it also welcomes so many different people. There's art, like Night and Day is itself an exhibition space, it's a cafe during the day, it's a meeting place for artists and ideas, and gives them a chance to write new music or plan dates or plan recording sessions. It gives it a chance for people to come in and paint and draw and listen to music and read and write, and
it's more than a venue.
Yeah, it's a cultural hub, and I think that's also one of the most important parts, and it's why we've got supports from so many different aspects of life, because it isn't just important to the artists, it's important to the fans, it's important to the community, it's important to students, it's important to
Manchester.
DJs and Manchester. And for such a music city, the fact that it's so under threat is really disappointing, because it's a big part of the reason that I came here to the city, and to lose that would be really, really gutting. Not that it will, we're all very confident, but for it to even be put at risk, you know what I mean, it's mixed messaging from a council and an organisation that prides itself and draws people to the city based off its music heritage and culture.
Anything I've missed?
Just keep getting out to supporting your local venues. I mean, Independent Venue Week is 1 week of the year, but independent venues exist 52 weeks of the year, so it's really important that we support them year round. Keep going on their websites, checking out their listings, get to as many gigs as you can, buy lots of drinks, buy lots of merch, and just ultimately support in any way you can.
That's so sweet.